This video is meant to dispel any confusion and leave you with the information that you need to confidently talk about, think about, source, and prepare caviar. If there was any food synonymous with luxury, caviar might be at the tippy. Over its many years of existence, caviar has been popularized through pop culture, right? It's been served at fine dining restaurants, it's been featured in movies, and is even commonly served at bourgeois house parties. I mean, really, who would have thought fish eggs could be intimidating? Not I. But at $50 an ounce on the low end, it's probably a good idea to learn how to use this stuff before you spend your hard-earned guala on it. Also, very exciting, this is the first installment of a new series here on the channel called Pinky Up. On episodes of Pinky Up, I will explore the wide world of luxury culinary ingredients and products. The goal of this series is to teach and learn about high-end products so that you have a better understanding of what they are and how you can use them at home. I do not ask often, but if you are new here and this sort of thing seems like it might interest you, please consider subscribing to the channel. I post new videos every Wednesday. Alright, that is it from me. Let's talk fish eggs. Alright, so let's start by defining what caviar is and where it comes from. Caviar comes from a prehistoric fish called a sturgeon. The caviar themselves are just the roe or the unfertilized eggs from a female sturgeon fish. There are 20-something odd species of sturgeon on the entire planet, many of which unfortunately are on the endangered species list. They are native to parts of Eurasia and North America. Most commonly, caviar comes from either the Osetra, beluga, sterlet, or sevruga sturgeon. Today, you might see caviar used as a word to describe roe of other fish too, but remember, true caviar is used to describe the roe of the sturgeon fish. If you're at the store and you're wondering why the caviar is so inexpensive, look at the label. If it says trout caviar or salmon caviar, you know, those things are both tasty, it's just not the real thing. It's not real caviar. That would just probably be better known as salmon roe or trout roe. Even if they're from the same type of fish, there are dozens of different caviars. Caviars that come in different sizes, different shapes, different smells, textures. Overall, it's believed that the fuller and rounder caviar eggs are of the best quality, but you know, it kind of depends. So in order to really get a full grasp and understand caviar, we need to take a closer look at its history. So sturgeon was quickly identified by early peoples as sort of a powerhouse fish, if you will. Sturgeon provided early peoples with both a delicious, nutritious meat and of course also caviar eggs. Those caviar eggs sort of tasted good without much culinary zhuzhing. In other words, ancient people felt that caviar tasted really good right out the box, which probably was a value in and of itself. Caviar consumption dates back to as early as the 4th century. Many ancient populations enjoyed caviar. You know, the Greeks, the Romans, the Persians, they all loved caviar. Then sometime between the 10th and the 12th century, Slavic peasants began harvesting sturgeon from freshwater rivers in Eastern Europe. Like I said, the fish can grow massive, so they provided a ton of meat and of course the eggs, which we touched on. But those eggs weren't valued like they are today. In those days, caviar was enjoyed by both peasants and the aristocracy alike, but due to some crafty medieval public relations by Russian czars, caviar was transformed from an everyman's food to sort of something that was really only enjoyed by the wealthy elite. Alright, so I know what you're thinking. Why doesn't every country that's fortunate enough to harbor natural sturgeon set up shop and just start slinging caviar? It's not that easy. Due to fishing regulations put in place to protect the very existence of sturgeon, wild, legal caviar is very rare. And I stress legal because there are poachers out there that will harvest the caviar and flip it at an insane profit. Totally illegal. Don't get any ideas. These days, caviar comes from one of the 2,000 or so sturgeon farms from across the world. Long story short, farming sturgeon takes an insane amount of resources, time, and human labor. It takes at least 7 or 8 years before a sturgeon fish reaches sexual maturity and is able to produce caviar at all. This means that farmers must feed, care for, and house the fish for a very long time before any profit is made. There also aren't any written rules or a magic formula for providing the best caviar, so farmers need to consistently monitor these fish, test their eggs, make sure their health is right, make sure the swimming in the water environment's right. Sturgeon are very, very sensitive to water temperature and water cleanliness, which means that farmers need to painstakingly make sure that their habitat is upkept. Upkeep? Kept nicely? Is upkept a word? Finally, after years of raising the fish, the farmer either kills the fish or injects it with hormones to release its eggs. The caviar is then extracted, cleaned, and separated before it's salted and packed by hand before being aged for a couple months at least. Again, this is a long, drawn-out, resource-heavy process. And now that you're familiar with the process, you probably understand why caviar is so expensive, but believe it or not, there is a little bit more to it than that. At one point in time, caviar was actually served for free at bars as a salty snack meant to encourage more drinking. a far cry from the bougie eggs that we know today. Other than the sheer difficulty, human labor, and resources needed to raise healthy sturgeon, the pure scarcity of caviar producers means that it's going to cost a little more to get your hands on some. So I mentioned it, but here in the States, the first sturgeon that were caught by fishermen were largely ignored. Actually, the roe, the caviar, a lot of the times was just thrown away and seen as a waste product. If you could only go back in time and snag those garbage bags full of caviar, what would I even do with that? Over the years, as the US became a wealthier nation, its citizens looked to posh European customs to live lavishly. Part of that luxury was food, specifically caviar. Most of the caviar in America was imported from Russia by the wealthy elite, turning the Russian caviar label into a symbol of wealth. To this day, some of the most highly prized caviar come from the Osetra and Beluga sturgeon of the Caspian and Black Seas. So caviar's price points can definitely range from $50 to $4,000 per ounce. I've even read of a certain type of rare Iranian sturgeon caviar going for like $17,000 an ounce, some absurd number like that. So why would anybody want to spend that sort of serious dollar on unborn fish babies? Yes, you're always going to have those dudes who just want to flex and buy the most expensive thing, but some people really do enjoy the taste of caviar. So there you go. Caviar is high priced because of a number of cultural factors, its scarcity, and the manner in which it's produced. Okay, so price out the way, we touched on that. Let's talk more about the caviar itself, right? What it tastes like, how to use it. I mentioned it before, but caviar comes in many different shapes, textures, and flavor profiles. However, the one trait that most caviar shares is a certain level of salinity or brininess. Then within that sort of brininess is another additional set of unique flavor profiles and textures that make it special. From a culinary perspective, purists will tell you that all the caviar needs is a neutral vessel to sort of hold the caviar on to take your bite, or just, your hand to slurp it off of. Just plain and simple, the caviar is the star of the show, that's all you need to focus on. But others like getting a bit more creative. These days, chefs weave caviar into composed dishes, they dollop some caviar on omelets, maybe they use it as a topping on cured or preserved fish or vegetables, or even just paired straight up by themselves with complementary foods on a potato chip. A traditional caviar service usually involves caviar served over ice with some sort of a neutral vessel to carry the caviar on. Usually maybe some creme fraiche, some chopped egg, maybe some chives and some chopped shallot. Nothing too strong is ever served with caviar, as not to mask the overall taste and experience of the eggs themselves. A common vessel that you'll see are toast points, or just mini toasts here, or something called a blini, which is really just a tiny little Russian pancake, sometimes made with buckwheat. And I actually have a recipe for homemade buckwheat blini, so be sure to check that out if you are interested. I'll list it somewhere below. So beverage-wise, caviar is traditionally served with something like a vodka or a dry champagne. That's sort of like the OG way to do it, but you can, drink whatever you want. The idea being, of course, to sort of cleanse and refresh the palate, making way for the real star of the show, which, needless to say, is the caviar. Some people sort of like to roll the eggs around on your tongue before you crush them on the roof of your mouth to sort of get the really full feel and taste and aroma of the caviar, or you can just chew them. There's no one way to do it. But no matter which way you choose to do it, I highly recommend savoring the little guys because it is a unique experience. One important thing to touch on, never use a metal spoon to eat caviar. Instead, use a spoon made from mother of pearl. Metal and even silver utensils are said to sort of toy with the delicate flavor of the caviar and ruin it, so use mother of pearl. For me, caviar falls in the same category as other luxury ingredients, right? They're expensive, they're special. If you're going to eat it, do it right, do it big, be generous with your portions. You really want to get a full experience here. No matter what you decide to do, take your time to make it nice and really enjoy it. When you are finished enjoying your caviar, if for some reason there are leftovers, just refrigerate it in the jar or the tin that it was served in. An opened jar of caviar is gonna last in your fridge somewhere between, I would say, like 1 and 3 days before it starts to get gnarly. You're gonna want to eat this stuff pretty quickly after opening it. So if you want to snag some caviar for yourself to play with, to experiment with, there are a bunch of different ways you can go about doing so. Thanks to modern day logistics and the internet, there are lots of different websites that sell great caviar. If you're fortunate enough to live in an area with a specialty shop, you might be able to find some there. Some really well-stocked, nicer upscale grocery stores even have decent caviar these days. For better or worse, this video is not sponsored, but my favorite place to buy caviar is from Regalis Foods. I was introduced to Regalis years back by a chef friend of mine, and ever since I've been a loyal customer. They're great, they have great stuff. It's really fun to sort of see what they have as the seasons come and go. It's always fresh. I mean, these guys are basically like a modern day food logistics company. It's very impressive. They have great stuff. Regalis is my go-to spot to cop fancy boy ingredients whenever I feel like I want to play with them or I need them for a dish. If you're looking for some ultra high quality, professional, kitchen worthy caviar, I recommend giving Regalis a peep. I'll be sure to leave a link to their website below so you can check them out. Babe!
Yeah?
You want some caviar? We got quite the smorgas.
I don't like being fat. Oh! Bring on the whole thing.
I'm doing it. Yum.
Like, how could it not be?
I sincerely hope that this video turned you towards the direction of caviar enlightenment, or at least taught you a thing or two about the little eggies. If you have any additional questions, pop them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer your question if I'm able to. But yeah, that's it from me for this week, so thank you for watching, and I shall see y'all soon. Toodles!